welcome councillors, staff, members of the public, media and all those at home to the council meeting on Wednesday the 2nd of April. I'll call for apologies, but everyone's here, so there's none. Item number 2 is extraordinary business. Any items on today's agenda of extraordinary business? Nope. Number 3, declarations of interest. Any conflicts of interest? And I'll declare item 10 conflict of interest in today's agenda and will leave the meeting, and the Deputy Mayor will take the chair. No other declarations of interest? No. You've got your lot on, Hamish. Confirmation of the minutes. Item number 4 on page 3, looking for accuracy, and page 4, page 5, page 6. No alterations to record of that meeting. Councillor Cameron moved, Councillor McMillan seconded. All those in favour please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Next item is reports, and we have item number 5, page 7, appointments and remuneration of directors of council organisations policy. Welcome Lou, Mark and Tony. Anything further to add to the report?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. We have questions. Councillors, questions of the report? Councillor Wilson.
Just to clarify, so there's a difference between like the council-controlled organisations and the water entity we're looking to potentially, one of the options to set up. There's quite a difference of the councillors can be on those organisations, but they can't be on the water organisation. Is that correct?
Thank you. So the Chair, yes, that's correct. The way the legislation is currently written for the water services, council officers nor council elected members could sit on those boards if it was a CCO.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I've just got a couple of questions. First one is, I think we put the remuneration from the RDR email board into next year's budget. So would that mean if this was passed, that would be removed from the budget? Is that how that would work?
Thank you. Through the Chair, yes, so it's coming in as income into the council cost centre,
right.
So we would need to make that adjustment. Okay,
thank you. And just a couple of questions on, and I'm on page 23, 24. So we've got, sorry, I'm on page 25. We've got the RDR email, and there's a director appointed from council. Well, currently it's the mayor, so it doesn't have to be the mayor, it can be any councillor. And what is the appointment process for that? Is that, does the mayor appoint that director? Does it go to the council to be voted? How does that work, or how will it work with this policy?
Perhaps I can answer that, Mr Mayor, through the Chair. So the council appoints the director, usually on the recommendation of the mayor, one of those early meetings post the election process. So when council agrees which representatives should sit on external organisations, then that will be one of those ones which usually the mayor will make a recommendation and council will adopt it.
Okay, thank you. And just one further question, if that's okay. The Transwaste Canterbury Limited, so I sit on that regional landfill joint committee, and from there there are 2 Christchurch city councillors and 1, we call them other councillors because it's from Waimakariri, Selwyn, Huranui or Ashburton, who is then selected to go onto that board. To date, I don't think there has been an Ashburton district councillor that's ever been on that board, but there could be in the future. How is that going to work? Because I see you've got directors appoint the chairperson, which technically we don't. We just approve the 3 members that go on to that Transwaste board from that landfill committee.
I assume, through you, Mr Mayor, I assume the chairperson there is of the board. So I imagine the
Yes.
directors are appointing the chair of the board. Skill Cox has been appointed chair for a number of years by the...
Oh, so those directors do, but
Yes,
yeah,
but that's what I think that's
is
referring
that
to the
where
board.
it may, okay.
Yeah.
Right,
So, but you may have a slightly different question. I don't know if I've answered the question, but that there is referring, I'm sure, to the board.
it's probably, I'm just sort of thinking there could be a possibility that there's an Ashburton District Councillor who is appointed as a director, but they would be appointed from that landfill.
So they
Committee.
would then be on the board,
Yep,
and then they and their fellow directors of the board would appoint the chair.
yes, I guess so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Cameron?
Thank you. I'm just going to go to the RDR ML question. Have we ever had, we've always had a representative from council on that board as a director?
Hamish?
That's a question.
Yes.
Is there the right of council to choose a non-council member on the board, or does it have to be a council person?
I'd have to check the constitution. Essentially, council is entitled to a representative, so in theory that could be an external person, I suppose, but I'd need to check specifically.
Yeah. And in the past, the compensation has gone to the council because that person has been a councillor or a mayor or whatever. So why is the motivation to return the compensation to the individual?
Mark?
Excuse me. Essentially, it's as a result of legal advice that we've received that is the most appropriate way forward.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder if it's always going to be a councillor or a mayor or a deputy mayor or whomever, then they could be appointed because they're a councillor or a deputy mayor or a mayor or whatever, not because they necessarily would be appointed if they were not one of those people. So I do not believe it's appropriate for the compensation to go to the individual. That would be my view. What is the legal advice? Have we seen that legal advice?
We had a workshop on it, I'm not sure.
Oh, I may not have been. I probably might have been. Apology for that. How emphatic was the legal advice?
The legal advice was pretty clear. We can recirculate that to you.
Yeah, it just seems to me to be a little bit
It's around director's liability.
okay.
The director is liable,
Yes.
so by rewarding the director with a director's fee,
Yeah.
could somewhat offset a liability that they could.
So if they're not given a fee, then they could assume they're not liable. They're just sitting there as an ornament, so to speak.
They could assume that, but they are definitely liable as any director
which
of a
presumably
company.
any one of us would know that. But
And
okay.
could be
Yeah,
fined any amounts of money that a court decided. So here would be some compensation for if it went bad.
Thank you.
And RDR has only just started paying directors' fees in probably the last 4 or 5 years. They never used to, but it's changed recently. Yeah. Councillor Wilson.
Just further to that conversation, do we have any other organisations which are similar to RDR in that the director is a commercial director who's liable under the, Directors Act effectively? Do we have any other that fall into that same class?
Through Mr Mayor, we would regard the director's liabilities of ACL to fall into exactly the same class.
And they're the only ones we have. None. All the other appointments we have to community boards, and to all those there, we have through the Act we are nullified from having any liability. Effectively, is that correct? Unless it's illegal activities.
There's definitely some areas of liability don't exist in the community organisations. For example, it's very different in terms of health and safety compared to a commercial company. But I wouldn't go as far as to say you've got no liability by being on other groups. You'd have to look at the particular group and the particular liability that would need to be examined carefully. But in terms of a full commercial responsibility of a director, then ACL would be the nearest comparison with RDR.
And further question on clause 3.3 on page number 20. Those clause 3.31, 3.32, they are to all council appointees as directors. Is that across all things we appoint? Is it? I'm just interested in the 3.32. Elected members and council officers appointed as directors to COs should not hold other interests in the organisation they've been appointed to. And when I bring up, is that RDR? If someone's appointed to RDR, does that mean that any farmer who has water from RDR could not be a director through the council? Because I would have thought that we would be saying that has declared their interests, and then it's up to the council to make that decision if those interests are relevant. Because obviously that can go quite a long way. If you own any land in Mid-Canterbury, you could be technically tied up, or so it becomes quite a strong comment, not hold other interests in the organisation. If it's governance interest, totally understand it. But if you're just no different to a ratepayer, if you're just a ratepayer, you can't buy. And the company's constitutions that they have will actually limit the amount of shareholding to a maximum amount. So you don't actually have an unfair as a shareholder. So I'm just interested to understand your comments on that.
Yes, perhaps to start that commentary through Mr. Mayor, the test that usually applies to councillors and their interest in other matters is an interest no greater than another member of the public. So normally being a ratepayer of the district wouldn't create an interest that would preclude the councillor from being involved. So we might maybe be better to use language along those consistent lines with the conflict of interest legislation. This clause would primarily mean perhaps you're a shareholder of a competitor and you might have different motivations to act as director for the CCO. That's the sort of interest that we would be on alert for, rather than just being a rate-paying member of the community or an organisation that involves many other farmers or whatever it might be. So that language might clarify that, or we could take the lead from what you said, and council may have in mind to have a clause in there that such interests need to be declared to council, and council will decide whether they rule them out. That might be another way you could approach it.
I would endorse that second logic, because that allows, if we have some skill around the table, we could knock out half the councillors, and people that have no knowledge of it could end up being the only ones left in the room to be on whatever the organisation we end up with is.
Yeah, I note the paragraph here, it says the council will consider the potential conflict of interest. It'll only consider it. It doesn't exclude them from. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm back on page 25 again. Under Transwaste, I think ownership structure, you may have missed Selwyn Council in part of that. And we have a regional landfill joint committee meeting on Monday coming. And there may be a bit of an update after that. So I can pass that on.
We'll await your update at the next council meeting. Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. 3.3.3, it's got the elected members and council officer appointments as directors will terminate on completion of their duties with council. So presumably going back to the old RDR question, that if you're no longer a council member, you're no longer so clearly it is an elected member thing, not an external thing. So if we did have a council full of people that, for example, couldn't do trans waste or didn't know anything about it, or RDR, then we might, as Richard alluded to, have somebody with absolutely nothing to add to that board at all. So I think that we need to have some there that we can not elect someone external to the organisation.
You want the ability to elect someone external?
Yeah. And also, my other point is we have insurance. I guess we have indemnity, as councillors we have indemnity insurance. Are we covered from, like, if we're on an RDR board or a Transwaste board or any CCO board, would we be covered with that indemnity if we were doing that as if we're elected from council to go on that board? if we're selected or put a hand up.
Usually the company will take out its own indemnity policy for its directors. And this is part of the conversation around remuneration, clarifying where that liability rests. The director has responsibilities and they have them to the company. It's not usually the shareholder or the appointing group that would necessarily indemnify the
But
director.
if we-
So you'd want to ensure that your organisation that you're being asked to be a director of had the appropriate insurances for your comfort.
Absolutely, but if you were elected onto, example, Transwaste or RDR or ACL or whatever,
You'll be appointed, you won't be
appointed, beg
elected.
your pardon, appointed onto one of those boards, because you were a councillor, then would that indemnity not follow you as you are a councillor elected onto those, appointed onto those boards?
My understanding is the indemnity cover that you would be most interested in would be that of the company itself.
The legal advice we
I
got
think
was
that
no.
would probably need some clarity around that, because you're elected, you're appointed because you're a councillor. You're a representative of the community.
Yes, however, that's just your pathway to the board, and your
Yeah.
responsibilities then are to the board and the organisation.
Yeah, of course it is.
So
Yeah.
that's where the
Okay.
liability rests, and we'll recirculate the legal opinion. Yeah.
It should become clearer then. Councillor Wilson.
Just the 2 points I'd like to clarify. So the council can appoint a director to anything if from outside of the organisation, but they have to take into account the skills we've written down, core competencies. We've got a big list of skills and competencies. So obviously you would have some way of appointing them, and if it was the mayor just doing it, they would make the decision that there's not the competencies I think are required, so then they would go out from outside it. So there is that competency to do it. But I'd still like to just draw, I think we should be striking out as the word 3.32, because 3.31 does, gives because we do get to, as a whole council, we vote on that director. So if you'd declared something and you had and the council laws would have the wisdom to understand if that was material to them, and they would strike that out, rather than it being struck out without even considering it. So I think we'd lose a big knowledge base if we did that, just struck it out completely.
Because I think that's true, and it reminds us of the importance of completing the conflict of interest register as councillors, so that the potential conflicts can be fairly assessed by council as they consider making such appointments. Mr. Speaker, could I suggest that when you get to the point of a resolution, that there is an amendment move to take out bits that council don't want to support?
If we, might be a Tony question, if we remove 3.3.2, would that be detrimental to the policy elsewhere, or is it just specific to the interests that are there? Will it cause something else?
Through the chair, no, we're comfortable that can be removed in isolation.
Thank you. Further questions? There being none, thank you. There's a recommendation there. Thank you, team. And there might be an amendment to the recommendation, which is removing 3.3.2. Councillor Wilson. Oh, Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, firstly.
Councillor Wilson. No.
I'm happy to move that with that amendment.
To remove 3.3.2. Councillor Wilson, second.
Second that.
Speak to the motion. Any debate? Being no debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Next item, number 6, consultation for the annual plan. Welcome back. In addition, Emily. Anything further to add to the report?
Thanks through the chair. Nothing further to add.
Questions? Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Officers are recommending that council does not consult but informs the community. How do you see that? Do we have a plan of action there? How do we see that happening?
So through the chair, so we'll have a conversation with comms about this, but it'll be generally some kind of something in the newspaper through the council brief, something online on Facebook, on our website, and probably something in hard copy that we can have down in customer services for people to read.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
In order for transparency, is one of the reasons we don't need to, because obviously everybody will be talking about the bridge potentially coming up in the future, and we have a number in our long-term plan which falls into the annual plan, and obviously, you know, where does that, why are we not looking at consulting? Because of that potential change. Obviously, we think there could be a change with the new bridge, we don't know yet.
Thank you, through the chair. So our officer's assessment is that what the budget that we've got in LTP year 2 is actually in line with what we need in the 25-26 financial year. Conversations about future funding of what we might need in the future for specific projects like the bridge, for example, we're expecting them to land perhaps later in the 26-27 year and beyond. So it's at that stage, it's in the next 12 months that we're looking to have our eyes onto the horizon of what's coming up and what's future conversations we need to have with our community.
Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. Through the chair, I think I ask this every time. How much does it cost for annual plan consultation?
Generally speaking, we sit around the $20,000 to $25,000 mark.
So recommendation there, if there's no further questions, I'll move. Seconder, Councillor Ellis. Thank you. Open for discussion. I think the annual plan we've got is not far different to the long-term plan year 2, hence not the need to consult because they're reasonably close, and if not even better, rate increase being 7% or 7.3, which is less than the 10, but still higher than inflation, and we're aware of that. But this is the best plan we've got going forward at holding levels of service. Further speakers for or against? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Next item is number 7, Ashburton Cemetery, new public convenience. Welcome Ian and Neil. Anything further to add?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, one correction in the recommendation. You'll note the LTP reference to the year is incorrect. It should be 2024-34.
It's quite a long year, that one, isn't it? The first.
It is rather.
Altered that in the recommendation. Philip has made note of it. Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Hi Ian, I see the recommendations for 2 times 2 pan unisex units. Why do we need 2 pans? Why can't we go with 2 single pans?
Through the chair, so your reference is to not have unisex, but to have single? Is that what you're suggesting?
Are these 2 toilets beside each other in the one block times 2, or is there just...
Each individual block would have 2 unisex pans, so at either side of the cemetery site. So there would be one physical block compared to what the old one is now, where it's in separate. So the pans would be unisex and able to be used by either or any person at any point.
Councillor, it's long.
No, thanks.
Come back if you wish. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, the toilets do not meet currently accessibility standards and are rated poorly in terms of crime prevention through environmental design principles. What does it, and there's no, what does that actually mean?
Yes, through the chair, the CPD, crime prevention through environmental design, is a benchmark of public assets where we look at the design aspects in terms of what does that allow for in terms of safety, security of users. So we've just recently had that process conducted over all of our facilities with a view to the upcoming next year's asset management plan to update. So that information has just come to hand, and it has defined that the old main cemetery, original cemetery toilets are somewhat wanting in that respect, and they don't cater for accessibility needs like a new facility would.
So when do we have the ones that require, for example, are in the domain, are they crime prevention design?
Through the chair, the new ones are.
Because they certainly
The-
get crime.
Carolyn, just talking to your microphone.
I beg your pardon, there's certainly crime at those.
Yes, so
facilities.
the old ones are comparable to what we have at the old cemetery, so they don't meet that test. The new ones, however, do.
Do we have any statistics on how often the current toilet block at the cemetery is used? Do we know how often people use it?
Through the chair, no, we don't. The new facilities again have counters and that technology fitted and installed. The old technology
Do you feel it's
facilities
used?
don't.
Do you have a feeling for that, or not at all? Like we're sort of going to put 2 toilets in, and we don't know if they're actually a demand for them. Have
Yes.
you done some work on that?
So through the chair, how we came to this position of having the 2 was that the council back in 17 to 19, when it agreed to extend the cemetery into the Seafield lawn, part of that process was having a toilet block on that site as well. So that was what has flowed on through subsequent LTPs. So at that point there, no doubt was a discussion that the old toilets near the RSA area, which is going to
Yeah,
have
I know where
ongoing
they are.
use,
Yeah.
needed. So
Yeah. It would be nice to have the confidence that there is a demand for new facilities before we build new facilities and they're not used, or they may be used. You know, we have a big gap in our knowledge, I consider. Yeah.
Councillor Bryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ian, why are we not using one set, option 3, in the middle? Because there's not many people there all the time.
through the chair, that's the purpose of this report. It came at the councillor's behest to have a look at what that option could look like. So here is the information before you. We're here to seek some direction from the council as to how you would like us to proceed with this.
Well, I think the third one is the best one, but it's personal.
Debate that shortly. Councillor Lovett.
I'm just going to ask, when we put some new toilets in there, will there be cameras around the area that's looking at that to help deflect vandalism? Because we know there's a lot of vandalism in and around the plots on graves, pinching stuff and that. Could we do better out there with their surveillance?
Through the chair, there is no intention to put cameras in at either of those new facilities.
Right.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. The recommendation is for two two-pan toilets. If we settled on one, would there be one two-pan unit, or would that be a four-pan unit? If we settled on one location, would that be a bigger unit of, say, four-pan?
Through the chair, no, that would not. It would, the plan there in option 3 is for a single dual unit, so 2 cubicles.
Councillor Lawson.
Just want to clarify, if I've read it correctly, it's $290,000 cheaper having one in the middle compared to 2. And I'm trying to understand why the recommendation is for the first one. Is it to do with how far people have to walk or distance, or why is I'm trying to understand why the recommendation is for $290,000 more.
Through the chair, the recommendation just aligns with the asset management plan and the long-term plan that's currently in existence that has been adopted by the council.
No, that's good. And last question was around with access. If we decided to put one in option 3, which is in the middle, would it in your experience, to people that are mobility challenged, to get to the cemetery, you probably have to travel by car because from the location where it is to residential areas. So you would more than likely have been taken by car or have a vehicle there. So the reason that when you've got to the cemetery, you probably have wheels, I'd say, to get you to the. So saying if it was next to the domain, for example, where you could have walked there and you could walk to the cemetery, that would be, I understand that. But with the cemetery where it is, you probably have had to ride in a car to get there if you're mobility.
Correct.
So.
And there's tracks you can take your vehicles right to the cemetery, as I did so this morning, having a look at the facilities, and you could pull up outside the existing toilets and in your car and use them. There's an option 4, and it is do nothing. Hamish, you had some comment.
Well, I just wanted to
Ask the
reinforce
question.
where the officers have got to in this regard, and I think Ian answered the question very well, but we have simply tried to reflect the plans that were adopted by council following community consultation in the long-term plan. Now, there was, we recalled a conversation about whether that should proceed, and we recalled that that conversation was, to be considered at a moment of time in the future. But we have, and so that's hence the reason for this report, and I think it's right that it comes here in this form. But just to really underline, we have simply reinforced the plans you already have for that cemetery in our recommendation. That seems to be the right recommendation we as officers should make, rather than to challenging the LTP that's only so recently been adopted. But given the query that was raised through the process, it's appropriate for you to reflect on that and make the change yourselves if you so wish.
Just before I go to Councillor McMillan, there's the cost of it, the CapEx is depreciation and loan funded. What's the percentages for each? Page 37 in the financial implications.
Yes, through the chair, that's really a finance question. I'm sorry, I can't answer that one off the cuff.
It would be helpful for me if I knew how much was from depreciation, which we've already collected, and how much is going on to TIC. It may be coming. Oh, Helen.
Through the chair, we'd have to go back and just have a look at that. I'm aware that we fund our activities at an activity level rather than a project level, so we'd have to go back and do some calculations and see what the apportionment of each of those are.
And then the OPEX is UAGC 80%, targeted rate 20. Who's the targeted rate pointed at?
That'll be through the amenity rate, is my understanding.
Ashburton amenity rate, urban amenity rate. Thank you. Liz.
Thank you. Through the chair, so I'm on the option 3, page 36. So you've talked about the cost of it, and it says under number 14, it'd be the same cost as option 2, except for the 15k for the demolition, which would be in the next couple of years rather than the asset life. What is the estimated asset life of that current toilet block? Could you hold it out?
Through the chair, it could continue on for a period of time, knowing that it doesn't meet muster in several angles. And the other fact of that facility is that it has a septic tank set up.
Right.
So we're proposing that whichever new facility we land with, that it will be a holding tank situation, because we do not have reticulated services available there for that.
Thank you. And just another question. I think it's gone. No, I'll come back.
Councillor Cameron.
In the report, it mentions that there's no other public facilities at other cemeteries in the district. Are there, have you looked at other cemeteries outside of the district, and do they have public facilities if the cemetery's sort of a similar size to what we have?
Through the chair, anecdotally, from my knowledge, that is correct. There is the larger cemeteries tend to have a public convenience facility.
Have we done that work? Do we know?
No, we haven't. This is just from what I've experienced around the district and around the island.
And ongoing maintenance, we're talking here about we can't go into the reticulated network, so it'll be into a septic tank type of situation.
Holding tank.
Holding tank.
What is that? A tank?
It's a tank that's to be pumped out.
Yeah. How often would that require? Well, we don't know how often it's used.
It depends on the utilisation. So
yeah.
When the balloon goes up, we get the truck into empty.
Yeah, I think we've got a few questions that require answering, really. And I, like the Mayor, I'd like to know how much the urban amenity rate would be paying, or for the, if it's loan, how much we need to borrow. And is this actual cash, the depreciation, or is this one of these ones we've depreciated without the cash,
I'm not sure on that, who can answer that question, where the depreciation has come from. Helen?
Through the chair, any depreciation that would be used to fund this project would be what's collected either in that financial year or in prior financial years and set aside into a reserve. So it would actually be cash that's used.
Councillor Hooper?
Thank you. Yeah, back to my question before. Ian, do you know the cost difference between a 2-pan block and a single pan cubicle?
Through the chair, not off the top of my head, but it definitely would not be half. It would be above
Yes.
half of the value.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Mackle?
Thank you. Just a little bit more on Liz's question. India, with the life of the toilets that are currently there, what are we looking at? 5, 10, 20 years?
We might get 10 out of them as they stand.
Yep. And can I ask a couple more questions, please? Out of respect to the RSA, with those toilets that are in their vicinity, have they been talked to, consulted with, as to lots of, some of those people will be elderly and with mobility issues. So, yeah, would one close to them be a bit more handy?
Through the chair, certainly it would be a comparable level of service would be handy for that area. And I think either the recommended option or option 3 would provide that within reasonably close locale. The option out on, if it was only chosen to go with the new facility on the Seafield lawn, that's quite a way away.
Yeah, so I was just looking at option 2 with the new one, with retaining the one that's there. If you retain the one that was there or looked at demolishing it, are there worse facilities in the area than that one currently, with standards and condition?
Through the chair, there would be at least one other that springs to mind, which is up for replacement in a comparable level of quality, and that would be Lake Heron, which would be, those would be the 2 worst, I'd suggest, that we've got.
So Lake Heron is worse than the current cemetery?
Probably the same.
Yeah, at a cost of
Yeah.
200 plus thousand.
That would be, yes, comparable.
Thank you.
Councillor Bryan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we change it?
When we get to recommendation, we can.
Okay, great. I'll wait for that.
Councillor Wilson?
I'd just like to clarify the finance and policy on it. I've looked it up and it says that it's all residents, community-wide benefit 80%, all residents and visitors, which is UAGC, and then it says a targeted rate, but it says a targeted rate on business rating units in the Ashburton, Methven and Rakaia amenity rating areas. So is that a business rate rather than a for public conveniences? It's not an amenity, it's business rate, is it? That's what it says in the finance policy, is that correct?
Did that come from the long-term plan or the
I just searched up
funding policy?
Finance and policy.
Finance and revenue policy, that's what will be in there will be accurate.
So I just wanted to clarify, is it the urban amenity or is it the business rate, targeted rate?
Tony, your department, you're quickly looking it up, I see. While Tony's looking for that, clarification, Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. My question that I couldn't remember before, I can't find it in here, but I'm sure I read something about how option 1 is better because it meets the reserve management plan. Did I read that correctly, or is that something I have?
Remembering the reserve management plan is a living document.
Yes.
Which can change.
True, that's true. Was there reference to the reserve management plan?
Through the chair, I would suspect, without pointing to it, it would be the asset management plan.
Oh, okay.
That defines the asset replacement schedule, which this would fall out of.
Right, sorry.
It does fall out of.
Thank you.
Tony?
Thank you. Through the chair. So just to clarify, the question was around the funding of the public convenience activity. So 80% of it is funded through the UAGC and the other 20% is a targeted CV, and that falls on all business rating units in Ashburton, Methven and Rakaia, and it comes through the amenity rate.
Thank you. Further questions, councillors?
One more question,
Yeah,
please.
Councillor Cameron.
I don't understand why it's not on the urban amenity. Why is it on the business amenity rate?
That'll be your revenue and financing policy will determine that. Councillor, Tony?
Thank you. So under the policy, the UAGC was given weighting given the fact that it's got a community-wide benefit, but then the public conveniences were pushed onto the businesses given the fact that businesses in close proximity to the public conveniences get the benefit of facilities that meet the needs of shoppers or people coming through the district.
So essentially that is not the case for obviously the cemetery because they're not in close proximity to any businesses, and the people that get, it's a different thing, but the public toilets are grouped as public toilets together.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, which is
Be very time consuming to divvy them all up. Yeah. Councillor Mackle?
Thank you. And just looking at option 2 again, if we retain the toilet blocks that are there at the moment, how much would that cost and what works would be involved to upgrade that older facility? And like I'd imagine you'd change the septic tank to a holding tank.
Through the chair, we wouldn't upgrade the existing, we would demolish and rebuild with a prefabricated unit.
Yeah, okay. Question, Tony, if the toilet was funded by the cemetery itself, how would that rate fall? As a capital expenditure on the cemetery, how would that fall?
Just getting to that section. So cemeteries are funded 50 to 60% from fees and charges and 40 to 50% through the general rate.
Right. If it was that way, yeah. Thank you. Councillor Mackle.
Thank you. Back to my question, Ian. Sorry, I misread that. It just says it also involves retaining the existing toilets. If we upgraded them a little to try and extend their life, would that involve changing to a tank system rather than the septic tank?
Through the chair, no. The tank system would only be if there was a new facility entertained. This would be running the existing asset to failure and then removing.
With option 2, I was wondering whether it would be possible to just upgrade the facilities there at the moment to give it a longer life and building another one on the other lawn. Would that be a possibility so we could get a longer life with the facilities that are there and having a far cheaper option than building 2 and using the money that with that saving to go to Lake Heron first, because obviously the Lake Heron one would get a lot more use, I would imagine, than the cemetery being a camping ground.
If you visited the toilet block that's there now, I don't think you'd, as I did this morning, I don't think you'd spend money on upgrading them. They're near the end of their life, not at the end of their life, but they're getting near the end of their life. By the time you upgraded them into something nice, you would be demolishing and starting again if you looked at them and saw what they are now. And I just also question the actual usage of the toilets there and whether we should be spending any money on toilets there. No other cemeteries in the district have toilets, but it's not a question that's debating. Further questions? If not, we could move to, no, thank you, gentlemen. There's recommendation there. There's recommendations 1, 2 and 3. There is a recommendation 4, which is do nothing. And we don't have to build a toilet there. We could just leave existing as is, but looking for a recommendation. Councillor Lovett.
I would like to move option 3, please. I think it's terrible we're discussing...
Could you read the option to us, please?
That we construct one new toilet block in the Ashburton Cemetery between the Seafield and Bremworth Road lawns. Oh, hang on, I'll have to go back to the original.
And a second, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Brown? Yeah. Speak to the motion.
Sorry, through the chair, could I just clarify that you also want to say that you'll be replacing the existing toilets on the Bremner lawn as per the long-term plan?
That's not the recommendation. Is to leaving the existing toilet block there. Option 3 is. Yeah. Yeah. So moved, Councillor Lovett, seconded, Councillor Brown. Open for debate. Councillor Cameron.
I feel it's too early to move a recommendation. I think we need to know some usage statistics, and we need to know what the loan is and what the depreciation cost is, how much is it being used, and is there a need for it? And I'd like to know just a little bit, like, do they have public facilities in Selwyn Council cemeteries or a Christchurch big cemetery? I sort of wonder if we've just put the cart before the horse a little bit. We may need 2, we may need none, we may need 1. I just wonder if we've got a bit of an information shortage.
Well, if the motion is lost, you could bring another recommendation. If it is lost, if you wish. Councillor Mackle.
With option 3, I read somewhere that if that was the option, then it had to apply, if council had to get a consent or whatever for that to happen, because of plots that are nearby, and out of respect, they probably wouldn't like it too much if new facilities were going up next to those plots. Is that right or not?
No, we're not in question time, we're debating, so.
Yeah, well, as something I read somewhere, I think that the council, it's not just an easy fix. Yeah, I think council needs to apply for a consent for that to happen, because it's next to newer sites as such, and could offend.
So if you're not liking the recommendation, vote against it.
Yep.
Yeah. Councillor Wilson.
I speak in favour of the recommendation, and just to note, when it says option 3 and the cost, it says 288,435 central location, and then 15,000 for demolishing of existing Bremillion toilets. So there is only going to be 1 toilet left at the end of it. The other one's demolished. That's part of this motion, I would have thought, if they've put it in option 3 under what is the cost and the explanation. So that does mean we are voting to demolish it. That's correct, and leave 1.
Not the way I'm reading this. Option 3 is construct 1 new toilet block in the Ashburton Cemetery between Seafield and Bremner Lawns. Full stop.
No, carry on reading.
But it's not in the recommendation. It's an explanation. It's not in the recommendation. Councillor Ellis.
You've caught me on the hop there. I assume that the movers were expecting that full part of that was part of the recommendation, that they were seeing the old block demolished and just 1 single new one built, and I would be happy to move an amendment to that effect. So I'm moving that we go with option 3, which includes demolishing the existing toilet block.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Who's seconding it? Councillor Millen. I'll go to the move and the seconder of the original. Are you happy for that to be added on?
Yes, I'm happy.
They're happy, so then the amendment not required.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
They're
you.
happy to have that added.
Yeah. So I will now speak in favour of that original motion with that added. Interestingly, I just read, I think it's Tasman District Council are closing some of their public toilets and having less cleaning to save cost to the ratepayer. I think by us having 1 newer, modern toilet block there, we will have ongoing savings too, which is actually not really mentioned in the report. We'll only be cleaning 1 set of toilets there, and hopefully they're easier to clean and maintain. And I see that as a saving going forward. And I think 1 block is more than adequate for the cemetery.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I also speak in favour, and like Councillor Ellis, think 1 block is enough for the cemetery. It seems to be located pretty much in the middle of the old and the new cemetery, and I think accessibility is important for people who are visiting and able to use those toilets. While we don't know the numbers, I think by having toilets there for so many years, we can assume that they are used.
Councillor Cameron.
I don't know that we can assume that, But if we were going to assume that, I think they'd be used on the days, Anzac Day and the days of Armistice Day, and when people are out paying their respects to people that fought for us in various wars. And that is a long way away from where that one is. And I imagine Anzac Day and where those ceremonies are, people are down the other end in the older part of the cemetery. So this is a heck of a long, and that would be the busiest days of the year, I would think. So demolishing the existing toilet, I think, is not right, because those people are down there wanting to use the facility, so they've got to walk all the way out the other end of the cemetery to go to the facility. And there, where the crowds are there on those days, so you can assume more crowds, more use of the public facilities. That would be my view. So I definitely will not support demolishing the existing facility because of that.
Councillor Wilson.
I will support the amended motion, and I use it on the basis that we have a long-term plan which had the two in, but as the Mayor suggested, the long-term plan is a living document, and we need to revisit sometimes as we go along, because otherwise, why are we here? If we have a long-term plan of 10 years, we should just let it run out for 10 years. So we need to revisit when circumstances change and the thoughts around the table are different.
Councillor Mackel.
I don't support it, and just on from Carolyn, I support definitely what she was saying. Retain the existing ones, and option 2 won't have to apply for a consent as such for a new build, and it's going to be constructed where I believe there is a camera from reading earlier, and it can just go ahead without offending any existing plot holders.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that we should be planning for the future. We should be doing it once and doing it right. And I support two units where they were proposed. I believe at during some times of the year, one central two-pan unit wouldn't be enough. So there's definitely need for one in the new Seafield Lawn Cemetery, because I've had that feedback from people. I probably support the 2 separate units, because most of the people that go to the cemetery are elderly or older, and I can speak from that point of view. So in time, Seafield is going to get busier, so we should be planning for the future and centralising a unit in that area.
Councillor Hooper.
Tricky one. I support the amended, but I think that I don't think there's any rush to demolish the existing, and I question whether or not we need a 2-pan block. I think if you go into an interment or something out there, or then you plan, you go to the toilet before you go there. But if you do need, then you don't mind waiting while somebody else is going, surely for a couple of minutes. So
I don't support the recommendation. I've not been, I can't see the need requirement. There's a block of toilets there now, 2 toilets, male and female. They are not high use. We don't know how much use they get. We just don't know that number. I think we have greater needs of our monies elsewhere, not a toilet an extra toilet on the in the cemetery. It's paid for by borrowing. How much of the borrowing? We don't know. Some depreciation, some borrowing. We don't know that number. The borrowing's not unlimited. We need to be careful how we use it. If there was big usage days, like Anzac Day is a high usage day of the cemetery out there. Armistice Day is not. It's at the RSA. We have portable toilets which could be put out there for a high use day if they were required. And we're increasing levels of service. In our budget round, we were maintaining levels of service, not increasing where we didn't have to. So I'll be voting against the recommendation. Any further speakers for or against? I'll go for the right of reply.
I just feel it's very sad we're discussing this. We're upgrading toilets around the district. Why not our cemetery? It's, you look at the new ones we're replacing down at Hakateri and stuff. how many people use those. And I know at the Ashburton Cemetery, it is a well-used cemetery. A lot of other cemeteries around other towns and districts, they have toilets in them. And that cemetery is busy in the weekends, often on Sundays, and all this over the Christmas break holidays. It has a lot of people coming and going all the time. And you know, those old toilets are pretty old and they do need replacing, and we need to put 2 pens in there because you do have mothers and children going and the elderly, and they can drive, if they drive to the cemetery, they can drive up to these new ones in the middle. And I just think it's terrible. We're spending all this time discussing replacing, you know, a toilet block that's aged when we're busy doing it all around the district. And people have asked through the long-term plan as well, visitors that use this. So, yeah.
I'll put the motion, but before I do that, I'll read it, which is option 3 is construct 1 new toilet block in the Ashburton Cemetery between Seafield and Bremner Lawns and demolish the existing toilet block. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Show of hands, all those, we'll start again. All those in favour, please raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got a tie 5 all. I'm just going to ask the Chief Executive for a big piece of advice, please.
Yes, and I'm looking at our governance team too to get this advice right. Clearly, the Mayor has the right to use a casting vote, and that would resolve this matter, and the motion would be won or lost. Equally, however, we have had some questions that have not been answered through that debate, particularly around the funding. So I don't think we can answer the usage one quickly in the absence of that data, but we can find an answer around the funding in a shorter time frame. And I wonder whether if the Mayor didn't exist his casting vote, the motion is simply not carried, but nothing has really happened, and it's essentially could lie on the table while we found that funding information, and that might assist the decision. Is that a course of action that is open to us?
In that case, you may be best to move a procedural motion that the motion lie on the table pending further information and pick it up at the council meeting in May.
So that information that would be coming, would we have that today or the next council meeting? Because I think usage would be a useful number as well. I don't think you'll have that today.
No, we won't, and I don't think we'll have it at the next council meeting. Like, we just don't have, if we haven't got that data, we would need a period of time to gather the data, and that's not actually going to help the timeliness of this decision. But we can certainly, within a reasonably short time, whether it's today or not, I'm looking at Helen, she's shaking her head, but we would certainly have that funding data for your next council meeting in 2 weeks' time.
Right, Councillor Hooper.
When we're gathering that information, can I also request that we gather a single pan cost compared to a dual pan cost, please?
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Cameron, motion.
Just a comment on the motion. The motion is as the motion is, so that will be if the Mayor agrees not to put his casting vote in, and this goes to get more further information, the same motion will be there when we come back.
Yes.
And so if we want to give some feedback on the motion, that motion has to be re-put to the council, or
Yes.
do we have a chance to modify that motion?
No, we're in the thick of passing or not that motion, and it would be if we followed Philippa's advice and had a procedural motion now to essentially leave it while we gathered further information, you would be coming back to this motion. You would be receiving that further information, and then the Mayor would be asking you to vote.
Okay.
And if no one had changed their mind, then he will be forced, presumably, to use the casting vote. But if one councillor changes their mind one way or the other, with the addition of the information around financing, then the motion will be passed or lost.
So so there's not an opportunity then, because you've talked about financing and you've talked about usage, which will be tricky to get. Will we consult with the RSA while we have this opportunity, and to determine how they feel about their existing toilet being knocked down, so they have to walk 300 metres to another toilet?
That hasn't, I haven't detected that that's a query that you currently have. If it's council's will, however.
It was one of my concerns, like, given that that's when it seems intuitive to me that the most people are out there on those days.
Yes, we hadn't detected that that was the will of council.
No, maybe not, but I'm just putting that out there
Sure,
now.
you could ask them the question.
Yeah, just go and talk to them and bring that up. Okay.
Yeah, Councillor Ellis, you got a
I'd
motion?
like to move that we let this matter lie on the table until the next council meeting of the, whatever date that is, in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, 2 weeks' time.
16th April.
16th of April.
Councillor,
Pending the gathering of
Yes.
the financial information that council
Information
has
that's
sought.
been asked for, yes.
Councillor Lovett,
And I'll second that.
Councillor Wilson.
Just want to clarify that by doing that, this motion still stands at the next meeting, and if this motion is won or lost, we're not materially changing it, talking about demolishing. That's not actually on the table. That motion is quite clear what it says, and if it's lost, well, then other motions can be put, but not, that one's not being changed. Technically, it's an amendment's made, but we've not put that to the vote. Yeah, the amended motion.
The motions, we've got a motion moved and seconded to let the matter lie on the table. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you. Next item is Ashburton Car Club Street Sprints Road Closure. Here are they. Recommendation there, or Mark, anything further to add to the?
Not specific to this, but after feedback from other events, so the Upper Downs Road Gravel Sprint, they said there were 30 participants, not many spectators, mainly associated with participants. Probably doesn't relate to this event so much in that there'll be a lot more spectators associated with the street sprints.
Yep. Thank you. It's information we did ask previously, how many people attend. That's good. Everyone will be different, no doubt, but this one will be a huge event. Normally is for lots of spectators and participants. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Page 42, item 4, the event has been advertised with a period for objections. Do we know how they advertise that? My concern arises from the fact that this is a different date to normal, and I don't think a lot of businesses in there have actually picked up on that, and because it's just been same for so long, and I'm just not sure that anyone's actually noticed. And I'm worried it's going to cause a little kickback because of the change in date without those directly affected being directly notified.
Yes, I guess that's something we can't control too much, although the similar street sprints in the previously hadn't received objections apart from one specific one that caused a few issues a couple of years ago. So other than that, there hadn't been that many objections. It's a well attended and well liked event, and it's been around for a long time. I agree it is a different date, but yeah.
I think you asked how was it advertised?
Yeah.
Standard way.
Yeah, the standard way through the in the what?
With the question mark at the end, the newspaper, I'm assuming.
Yes,
they normally
in the newspaper,
advertise in the newspaper.
Yeah, and on our website as well. So. Yeah.
No further questions. There's a recommendation. Councillor Cameron moved.
Yep.
Councillor Todd seconded. Open debate. Thanks, gentlemen. No debate. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Next item is RDR Management. They're here, and we have a PowerPoint presentation from them. Welcome Tony RDR CEO, Richard Spearman from Manawa Energy, and Evan Chisnell from Director of, or two of them being Directors of RDR Management Limited, and MHV representative. Welcome. Tony, you have a PowerPoint presentation to take us through, which you may share or you may do it yourself. Yeah, put them on, Tony, then everyone can hear you at home as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had a bit of a shuffle of names. I see Councillor Russell Ellis in front of you. What is that preempting the election later in the year or something?
Couldn't see that from this side. Let's have that remedied.
That's right. Didn't mean to be too disruptive.
Thank you for your observation, Tony.
I thought we'd just kick off with personal introductions. So thank you for that, Neil. But start with Evan.
Right hand, sorry. Yep. Evan Chisnell. I'm a RDR director, obviously. MHV director, so I'm representative of MHV on RDR. I'm also a trustee of HH Wet, and I own a handful of dairy farms, all in mid-Canterbury.
Yeah, afternoon, Richard Spearman from Manawa Energy, so previously Trustpower. It's been involved in RDR now, or the Trustpower machine was involved in RDR from around sort of 2000s, early 2000s. I've been involved as a director on the board of RDR for approximately sort of 10 years. And my whole career has basically been the electricity industry, so background there.
Thank you. And Tony McCormick, CEO, and I have no higher duties to lay claim to, I'm afraid, like my colleagues. Just an overview. I really welcome the opportunity to come along and give an update. I've always found them very enjoyable, to be honest. I enjoy the interaction and the questions. I always find those very meaningful. So what prompted this was this first one, this regional economic study, which we've had done, and I'd like to briefly present that. And then, given the opportunity, I thought some update on some further things. And if anyone's managing time, they can just call time, and we'll stop. So it's
half an hour.
Okay. So yes, we'll kick into it. So we've had a regional economic study done, and I just thought I'd throw up the big numbers to start with. The idea of this was to really put some metrics around the value of the RDR. We talk about it being the lifeblood of Mid-Canterbury. Well, just what is it? What's the number? And I personally looking for numbers that I can include in submissions and responses to various things. And they're pretty impressive numbers, really. And I'll just run through how these are made up briefly, but 3,500 full-time equivalents, and this is regional, really. It talks about Canterbury, but I'm sure you'll appreciate it's very much a regional activity. So the background to it, so Burl, sort of a recognised economic entity, I guess, involved in these sorts of things, undertook an economic impact assessment of each of the 3 irrigation schemes and 2 power stations to estimate the overall activity that RDR supports in the regional economy. I'll just sort of say, it would always be nice to say, well, what's the value of irrigation? And to do that's quite difficult because you have to sort of say, what's the activity without irrigation? And especially in Mid-Canterbury, it's been so long here, the whole land use changed. But so this was this isn't one of those, but it's really just saying, look, we're part of this whole business, and how much do we contribute? So same figures as I put up there in summary form to start off with, but I'm sure many of you are aware of some of the different ways. Some might call it smoke and mirrors, but really this is a well recognised process of saying, well, for the activity that we've thrown our hands around, how much is spent directly, and you'll appreciate predominantly it's farming, and I come on to that. They spend $1, at Rural Co, and that helps support the staff who go out and spend some more money. So you get a sort of this indirect, and then there's further induced expenditure and full-time equivalents and such like. So effectively it's saying, the farm workforce that within the farms we support, nearly 1,700 employees, and then downstream nearly that same again.
I thought this might be of interest. I've got a graphic, so I don't really need to spend too much time looking at the numbers, but when I set up the study, the idea was that I could hand to MHV or, to Evan, well, this is the sort of proportionate contribution of MHV and BCI and Ashburton Lyndhurst, the three main schemes we supply. So 108,000 hectares supplied by the RDR. Dairy and dairy support dominating it. You'll see there's about 80 to over 80% of the land use is dedicated to that, and then there's a mixture under that. So useful figures. Even collating that is quite useful at for us and even for the council in just responding or presenting various metrics. So that's what it looks like, and I guess it's just to sort of reinforce that dairy is the predominant activity, but noticeable BCI who are based more in the northern area, better soils on the south, or different soils I guess on the south bank of the Rakaia, and support a lot more arable and cropping. So sort of just to round this off, I've just made a comment here on electricity generation. So we've got, well, as you'll see, we've actually got 3 power stations on the scheme now. Everyone thinks we've got 2, but we've Richard's whipped up some magic for a 3rd one. But there's a hang of a lot of generation. I haven't actually done the maths, but it's tens of millions of dollars of electricity generation. But how does that benefit the region? And the model, I just suggest the model sort of struggled with that and didn't put any value on the actual generation. But of course that has a national benefit. It does all of these things, direct expenditure and employment and all that sort of thing. So in this study, the power stations were really just treated as a business with 10 employees, indirectly another 13, and that would include contractors on site. So it didn't feature largely in here. But it's just the nature of, I guess, how you'd need to take the helicopter up higher to really get a good measure of the value of that those entities. The report I think I might have flicked a copy to Hamish. It's public information. When we set it up,
we circulated on the 10th of February to councillors.
So, I'm more than happy. This is public documents, public information. There's nothing commercially sensitive about that from our point of view. Okay, I don't know if there's any questions on that, I was about to move on to the next thing, but if it has been circulated, then you'll be familiar with it. So that's good.
No questions on the regional economic study? Nope. Thanks, Tony. It was great. Very comprehensive.
I want to just move on to the Highbank Power Station refurbishment, mainly because it's hugely significant. It's significant to our business, and at my previous presentation, I think I alluded to the impact that has on it. But just to set the scene, and before I hand over to Richard, just a reminder, I guess. So this is above the Rakaia River, looking south. So the RDR sort of winding its way to the terminus point on the edge of the river, and then it drops down into Highbank. So Highbank operates full-time in the generation season, so May through September. They get all the water, excluding stock water, and in the summer they get anything left after irrigation. So this is the power station down there at the bottom. The normal operation is the water out of the RDR down there into the tail race and back into down into the Rakaia River. With the arrangement with BCI sort of operation, Trustpower at the time built a pumping facility to pump water from the Rakaia River back up into the RDR. So in the summertime, there can be times when we're bringing water in from the Rangitata and the Rakaia, and it's the nature of the very flat canal we have. We can supply that water. So it's BCI's water that's being pumped up the hill. 6 megawatts of pumping, so it's a fair bit of energy required to do that pumping. So moving on to currently, we've got the power station is now out of service. So we can't bring any water down there. We can still pump up because that goes around the back of the power station and up the pipe. But they've worked some magic on the pumps here and converted them, or added quite a bit of tricky equipment to enable them to operate as generators. So they can either pump water up, or the water can run the other way and they turn into turbines. So we've now got this facility which is happening today. Right now it'll be the purple lines, there'll be water coming down, and it's electricity out. So it's a pretty cool little, cool setup. Not without significant investment by Manawa to create that. And Richard might just sort of talk about the legacy of that upgrade, because it's not something that's only, will only have value from now. So I'll hand over to Richard.
Yeah, thanks Tony. I've got a few numbers and bits and pieces, but before I do that, maybe just sort of setting the scene a bit about this actually refurbishment of what's going on there. So the Highbank facility was put in and sort of using sort of 1940s technology. It's been there a while, and that particular turbine, there's only one turbine in the Highbank power station. That had roughly about 5 years left to run on it. We've been plagued with sedimentation issues and wear and so forth over the years. So what's going in there now is basically a new design, modern equipment. We looked at various ways of doing things, maybe putting in 2 machines instead of 1 to help with maintenance, or maybe putting even another building right beside the one that's there now and cutting it across at the last minute to save on production and so forth during outages. But instead we went for this option of turning these pumps into power turbines, and then that's actually been very, very successful. And just sort of give it the scale, for the sort of farmers in the room, that turbine's about sort of 38,000 horsepower, so it's a reasonable machine. There's quite a bit of steel there. The crews have just disassembled it, essentially taken the guts out of the building. They've taken around about 1,000 tonnes of material out of the station so far. A lot of that concrete, and I think there's a few photos later on showing that. The outage started in October. About this time next year we hope to be recommissioning it, with the intent of getting it back going by sort of May. At the moment everything's on track. Capital cost, not insignificant, in that sort of 30 million sort of zone. Quite a lot of people on site and work. So far they've done, the report here I had was the last board report we did a few weeks back, 14,700 hours. There's been quite a lot of people in there. We had, for example, the concrete demolition people were in there 24/7 for pretty much, I think, 2.5 months. They had a few days off in Christmas. And so this is all about compressing that timeline as much as possible to get things back in. The new turbine is going to give us around about a sort of 8% uplift in energy. So it's basically more efficient technology, newer technology and so forth. So it doesn't sound that much, but that's another 1,000 households worth of electricity that are going to be supplied out of that facility. So yeah, we'll say 12 months to go. As far as, there's a bunch of contracts on there, number of contracts. There's sort of about 8 chunky contracts, some design contracts. The main provider of the equipment is GE, so General Electric. They've sourced, they're all mainly stored out in the Christchurch area. It's about 5,600 components that they've sourced from around the world from their suppliers, and so there's about 112 suppliers feeding bits in. So all of that stuff's now in NZ here, and that's de-risked. So that's quite a thing.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. One question, Councillor.
Thank you. Just asking a question. So your contractors, are they staying locally, or are they travelling back and forth from Christchurch each
Most
day?
of them are local. So, for example, the company doing the concrete demolition, they were local. So that minimises the travel distances and improves health and safety and so forth. So yeah, they were staying local. Yeah, quite a lot of nights.
Councillor Hooper.
Thank you. Townie question, please. The area where you were pumping up the hill again, and you've now changed that and fired some turbines in there. If that's working well, why are you carrying on with your refurbishment of?
It's basically
small,
size.
Too small. Okay.
Yeah,
6 megawatts.
yeah. The new machine that's going in is probably about 5 times the size of the pumping stuff.
So it might be helpful you're only using 6 cubics of water now, whereas when the new one's in, you'll be using 30 cubics.
Yeah, in that order.
Ish.
Yes, I probably didn't make that clear on that in my diagram. The pumping and auxiliary we can only use about 6 or 7 cumex. It's a 30 cumex system, so we're a bit constrained. We're running on a very small exhaust pipe at the moment. So yeah.
So Tony's inserted some photos here. That's just basically in the power station itself. You can see there where they've chewed out a floor, removed the floor. Where those people are standing was pretty much solid concrete a few weeks back, and the actual machine was probably almost the same height again as what you can see in the building there. That's a closer view of it. That big hole on the floor, or the bit inside the primed pipe there, that's almost essentially the exhaust pipe. That's where the water will leave. And they've been in and chewed out all that concrete in that area, putting in reinforcing steel. And I think this week they're repouring concrete in there to get the levels right for starting building the machine up.
Councillor Michael?
Thank you. With the coin that's been spent there, 30 odd mil, the building structure itself, has it been assessed earthquake standards?
Yeah, we went through that probably 10 years or so ago through the MBS. I can't recall what the exact MBS standard was, but yeah, the building's been strengthened, and as part of setting up for this project, we replaced the crane as well. And these buildings have got quite substantial cranes, as you can imagine, what they're lifting, and that also helps with the structure. In general, power station buildings are actually quite strong when it comes to earthquake resilience.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a picture there of some of the stuff that's been cut out. That's pretty much where those people were standing, actually. They've taken, I think, about 800 tonnes of this concrete and steel out in this form. The guys were in there, that was that sort of nearly 3 months of cutting with diamond wire. Went through about 1 kilometre of diamond wire. Phenomenal amounts, and sort of some mind-numbing work, no doubt, going on day and night forever. So all of those were lifted out by the station crane we talked about, all engineered lifts. Every piece was cut, was all engineered where the lift points were and so forth. So quite a very comprehensive safety system.
Councillor Cameron.
I've even moved my jug so you could see them.
Do.
What's happening to? Is there an alternative use now for all that concrete that's been removed? And
I'm unsure, but it's a bit more than just concrete. If you see on those photos, you'll see little brown bits.
Yes,
that's actually steel, so they just cut through the concrete and the
could
steel.
it be used as
all at
fill
once.
or?
So I'm unsure where it's going to end up. Yeah.
A lot of car concrete.
I actually got quite excited about it. All that concrete as far as river protection works.
As far as what? Sorry, what was that?
River protection works.
Yes.
Big angular bits of
Must
rock
have some
is great,
usage,
but
yeah.
ECAN aren't too enamoured with concrete.
But it's already there. I mean, they're probably not.
Yeah, I have put it to my engineering manager. Can we use this? But he's had the pushback from ECAN previously. Hasn't sort of gone with this, but 800 tonnes of concrete. It's a shame that
there's a lot of energy gone into making it. You'd think it would be. Yeah. Thank you.
Good question. Okay, thanks, Richard.
Thanks.
Now, there's a number of little things I both wanted to inform and perhaps just put to the council. I've titled it recreational activities, but there's a couple of things of direct relevance to the council, and one I've just picked up on in the Methven Community Strategic Plan a little note about investigate kayaking on the RDR, or the use of the RDR for kayaking, I think might have been the terminology. And more recently, and I realise it may not even be sort of in front of the councillors at the moment, but it just reigniting, I guess, the study on Ashburton cycle trails that I think Braided Rivers did back in 2009 or something. So we got a inquiry email or an advice email from the council just saying, look, we're revisiting this. I guess, I mean, I will submit specifically on the community plan, but yeah, we love to encourage and enable these, but we're very mindful of our sort of liabilities and such like. Kayaking, for instance, more than happy to support and be part of organised events where there's a managed safety plan and what have you. But saying, open slather, help yourself to dropping your boat in and paddling where you like is not where it's at for us really. And I hope you'll appreciate that. Same with the cycle trails. Love to see that come off, and with the Methven Walkway, which we avidly support and sponsor where we can. We love to see it being used, but we just got to do it with caution really. The last thing any of us want is 67 kilometres of fencing to keep people off or away from the water. So yeah, it was just I guess an opportunity to say we love to help, but we've just got to be mindful of our own responsibilities.
And that strategy shuts shortly. The consultation on that.
Yeah, Sunday I think, or
you're submitting.
Yeah.
Rob?
Thank you. As far as the kayaking, have you looked in? You more than likely have avenues for a waiver for yourself, so that business could operate, and then they took over the responsibility of health and safety. Would that be an option or not?
Yes.
Well, would.
Not no.
No.
Not no at this stage. Yeah, certainly have a look at it. Yeah, it's just, and I was just going to say before I left, because I was talking to the bike trails guy yesterday, and he said, "Oh, well, are you aware of the exemptions in the Health and Safety Act under the recreational activities or something?" I said, "Well, not particularly, but very interested." So if there's some way that we can enable these things and make it very clear we're doing the best, but not not liable, because it is those sort of issues that are a problem for us. But I mean, an event, we support Richie with his peak to pub every year and such like, so happy to do that, but hadn't sort of thought of an ongoing thing. It's feasible, yeah. As I say, not no is my initial response.
Councillor Cameron?
Thank you. Just to comment on, I mean, there's a real fascination with the RDR, isn't there, in this district? And I think that showed up when you had the siphon open and we could all walk, and that was an amazing opportunity for us, really. So if there can be a way that can be, the community can use it safely, of course, because at a bit of speed you'd kill yourself if you went down there and
yes,
spots.
yeah.
So you be careful.
I'd have to say I'm sure there's there's not some kayaks around the district that haven't had their bottom wet in the RDR already, but I just, there's just not too much.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you. I'm involved with both of those projects.
Yes, you are.
And I was just going to mention that the Methven Strategic Plan is going to have hearings, so you can come along and speak to your submission. So that might be something that you would think about.
I will. Yes.
Then the board can ask any questions, because I think that suggestion came out of one of our workshops that we have with the community, and it was about using the assets that we already have in our community to get more people to come in.
Certainly
I'm
understand
sure
where it's come from,
that.
and
Yes.
yeah, more than willing to engage.
And that's probably how it ended up in the plan, more so than any other way.
Just a wee bit of an update on the Stockwater, the council's plan to exit Stockwater. First one, really saying what I think an excellent job's been done on the transition plan. It's full of information and gives good information for all those involved. As an entity, we are committed to being involved in that. There's a few issues. We had a meeting yesterday, so I'll back off with. I wanted to pull together what in the plan referred to as alternative providers. So it's generally this irrigation schemes and RDR, and we had good representation from the councils. Neil Brown, Neil McCann was there, etc. So, and I guess in that forum, I was very keen to point out, while this is a great plan, and the logic in it as far as incrementally working through intake by intake is the obvious approach for that. For the alternative providers, like the RDR goes right through everything, and
we need to keep a big picture view on how it all comes together. And the idea, you know, if we sort of close off, snip, 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 we're going to get to the end or the start and sort of find, well, if we'd known that then type of thing. So good reception, good discussion, and yeah, I think all of us wanting to do what we can to make this happen, but it was just this difficulty with you know, the incremental approach, and it's just a case of having good comms. Yeah, and the other, I guess the other thing, I sort of very aware the RDR is seen as you know, sort of belongs to the district, or you know, it's almost a community asset. Looks big, got lots of water, so surely we can put a bit here and a bit there and a bit there. Well, yeah, we can't. We're fully allocated, and in a lot of places it's running as hard as it can. And I guess the analogy I've sort of been thinking about is a major highway that's just bumper to bumper with cars getting along there. And if all of a sudden you want to take a couple more cars off there, the guys at the end just don't get, you know, the car, you can't push any more in here, you can't, you know, there's no room. So yeah, these capacity constraints and such like, we'll find a way to do the best. And the other comment, it's not up there sort of reference, but I think it's very important for everyone and for the councillors or the council. There's a lot of water being utilised for stock water, and probably most of that, Richard will probably have a better idea, but most of that is not actually getting to be drunk. So if we can end up with a much more efficient distribution system, there will be water that's currently allocated stock water that will no longer be needed for that. And again, it's this keeping the big picture. I think as a community and the council, we want to look at the best alternative or options for doing something with that unused water. I mean, for most it's we'll leave it in the river or return it to the environment. Well, we might be able to do that and still have some that can create some economic value for the region. Just a wee bit of an update on the flood repairs. It was a wee bit of a topic last time. May 21 floods, we got pretty bashed up, and we've spent close to $7 million repairing various places. So this is Taylor's Stream, probably an area that most people haven't seen. It's not that accessible, but Taylor Stream, so the canal comes from right under the river, pops up on the left, you can see it there. So we have these revetments, we call them the concrete revetments, that come out into the river. And yeah, they got a couple of, these two in particular got pretty bashed up. So you can see the one on the left has been repaired, and the one on the right is just going through that same process. So in 2 months' time, it'll be, you see the repair on the right's a bit bigger. Fantastic work by Grant Hood doing this, and we've been quite lucky. You can see there nothing much in the stream. If we go back to the 19th of March, everybody was out of the place and the water was over the protection and lapping on the concrete was thankfully up the way. But we've actually designed the protection works for a 1 year flood, or the mean annual flood, 45 cumecs through here, and it was 35 on March the 19th. So it all went well for us. Part of this work, I just wanted to transition briefly to the board. RDR board had a workshop last week, and we were looking at our asset management, long-term management of our assets, and introducing or weaving through that. What's our risk? What's our tolerance of risk? Because you know we've built these to handle more than the 2021 floods. The 2021 floods, biggest ever on record, were estimated to be about 150-year average return interval, or the 1 in 150 you kind of talk about. And yeah, it was a very useful, discussion and what have you. And the board's landing on this. Well, what is our tolerance of risk? And we a couple of things are leading us to this sort of 1 in 200 year 5% risk. We will design things, we'll maintain things, we'll upgrade things to manage that sort of event, which is quite easy for floods, because we all know, we've seen floods, we've seen what the damage is and everything else. Earthquakes, of course, are a completely different thing, and I think the jury's still out for us, isn't it, really? Yeah. Oh, gave away. This was just a slide that we kind of finished up with last week, and we've called it a view of risk. You know, sometimes we talk about risk appetite. Well, some might say it's good or it's bad or we're not. Very hard to sort of quantify it, and that's where something like a 1 in 200 year risk tolerance. And we were just musing that, you know, we've been focused on these assets, that's what I've just talked about now, but there's a whole lot of other things that impact on our business, you know, impact on our customers and our reputation. Reputation, of course, linked to retaining access to water and such like. So, yeah, I just thought it was a useful way of sort of starting to think about how risk tolerant are we. And just to finish off, it's always nice to say, well, we've completed a project, and this was one that we worked with the council on. It's not the prettiest thing, is it? You've got to sort of admit that it's not. But, I mean, that left-hand snip, Liz will recognise, it's straight out of the Methven Strategic Plan. So that is the finished job. I was pleased to see. You can hardly tell the difference. But, yeah, Joseph Builders did a nice, tidy job. You can, well, I don't know if you know, working in these historic, I mean, this is a classified heritage, has a heritage classification. So the things we couldn't do. So it was, you know, it was actually just making the foundations sound because it was getting a bit rickety, but new door on it. Even that, we had to burnish up the door handle so it didn't look new and things like that. But no, it's in it. So part of a plan, next step for us is some decent information, an information board there, and I know the council has plans for developing that particular site. So happy to be part of that. So there we are.
Thanks, Tony, Richard and Evan. It's a great overview of what the board's up to and what you're planning, and even the generation capacity at Highbank being enhanced and renewed and enhanced, which is great for the district, generating electricity on our doorstep. I've got a question now from Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mayor Brown. Thank you. Welcome, gentlemen. I was pleased to see that I'm the chair of the Stockwater Transition Working Group, and I'm pleased to see you're committed to working with us on that, which is good, because I think it'll take all parties to perhaps not go in with an aggressive nature, come in with a community spirit to help this process go through, because as we've said at the outset, the council has no money to invest in it. So we need all the organisations, the irrigation companies, RDR, to come with an open mind to the party, because it could be a great outcome for the district. But it could also, if people retrench their corners, it could go badly wrong. So I'm pleased to say you're committed to that positive attitude to it.
Thank you, Richard. 2 meetings ago, yeah, I put a paper to the board just really outlining some of those things that I've touched on, that it's we need to be careful as we step through and keep the bigger picture. I think that was well received and endorsed by the directors. Evan, is there anything?
Oh, it was quite good. I didn't have curly questions, but I suppose RDR and MHV, and I'm a shareholder of BCI as well, are a bit the same. Like those organisations don't have any money for stock water either, so it really comes down to the users wanting to, or the people who still want it and want to use it, putting their hands up and showing that they want it. So, but saying that, all those organisations are keen to help. So,
Further questions for our team here? No, not look like it. Thanks very much for coming and presenting that. It's a really good update. Thank you for that. We've got about 5 minutes worth of business to conclude, and then we're going to break for afternoon tea. So if you want to wait 5 minutes, we can have a cup of tea together and a further chat if you want to do that. So we'll be about 5 minutes. Thank you, Richard, for coming down from Tauranga. Next item on the agenda is welcome to new and long-serving staff. Katie. Or was there a Katie replacement? She's coming, great. Floor's yours.
Excellent. I have three new starters to introduce today here at ADC. First of all, I have Honey Gupta. If you can stand up, Honey. Honey has joined us as a business systems analyst in our information systems team. I also have Tamara Tate. Tamara has joined us as a horticulturalist in our open spaces team. And I also have Rebecca Lees, and she is our new safety and wellness lead. In terms of service recognition this week, we have Dave Foley, who is celebrating 10 years service with ADC. Stand up, Dave. Head up the front. In the words of Richard Wood, Dave is our rock. He is our foundation. He epitomises the word reliability. Dave is the reason EA Network Centre facility remains today one of the highest quality community recreation facilities around. Dave's commitment to quality thrives through everything he lends his hand to, be it a BAU maintenance or helping to implement one of Richard or Sarah's crazy new ideas. Dave remains unwavering in ensuring everything is done right and done well. Here's a few fun facts about Dave. After almost 10 years under Dave's guidance, EA Network Centre pools have not registered an issue with microbiological pool testing. Dave previously worked for CCC, overseeing the maintenance of all 44 of their recreational sites. EA Network Centre certainly isn't his first rodeo. Dave's knowledge is pinned throughout the industry, being one of the key technical inputs in writing the pool and water quality national standards. In his spare time, Dave loves spotter fishing and is a dab hand at trap shooting, regularly taking home the spoils at his competitions. We admire Dave's devotion to his role and look forward to seeing him around sporting more of our crazy ideas for many years ahead. Thank you for everything you do for the EA Network Centre team, Dave.
Good. Thanks, Katie, and well done, Dave, your 10 years service. It's great. And for the new starts, hope your time here is enjoyable and productive, and wish you all the best for starting at council. Well done. So we're going to move into committee, then we're going to break for a cup of tea. A mover and a second. Councillor McMillan, Councillor Ellis, all in favour, please say aye. Get carried. Thank you. And we'll break now for a cup of tea. Thank you.